Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cacophony. This is our third time actually starting to record this because of issues. So, before we begin, an announcement on why we've been so sporadic lately. That is because we've had a shuffle of editors. Our first one, Demon Wolf, he took a break from Discord. He did come back, which is great. We love him. But during that time, Cad stepped up. However, at that time, life decided, screw you, you're going to be busy, and he couldn't keep up with it. So now we got Helena. So, hi, Helena. Thanks for working
Hey.
with us.
Hello.
And with that, I'm Jelo, and I am joined by.
Oh, I'm a stereotypical gamer.
And I'm shandromand.
And I'm SmallJon.
All right. And we got something of a special episode this time because these three, as well as two others, are the guys that work on running Prompt Wednesday and its satellite programs. If you don't know what Running Prompt Wednesday is, stop living under a rock. Really though, what it is, it's every Wednesday. By that I mean Tuesday night on the RWBY subreddit. There's a thread that pops up. And you got three prompts to write and choose from. You can see what everyone else writes, or you can do it yourself. It's a really great way to get into writing. It's very low stress, and yeah, you'll get a lot of support.
Low stress, he says.
I found it low stress. So I guess to start this off, how did it get started?
Well, so since I was kind of solo there for a little bit at the beginning, I'll field that one. Um, 2016 was when I joined the subreddit in between the during the hiatus of Volume 2 and Volume 3. And I lurked for quite a bit before I participated. Over the course of the spring, summer, and early fall, there were a few attempts to start something like what we have today. Um, and it was the participation was good. The couple of threads that I did find, but that was all I could find. So I'm not entirely sure now that I've given it a second look whether that actually they were able to do more than one or if it was just like a one-off. First one was like back in April, and there was another one I think in May or July or something like that. I don't remember the dates. I didn't look too close, but sometime in late September, early October, one of the subreddit users, I think, I want to say it was Punished Venom Yang, and he's one of our occasional core writers that comes back and posts something once in a while. Had posted the question to the mods as to whether we could actually do a weekly event like we did for Whose Line Is It and Theory Thursday and so on. And at the time, the mods there weren't very many, and the subreddit bot that manages most of their automated posts couldn't take any more work on, and so they said that they were open to the idea of trying it out, but they needed somebody to do it for them. So I offered because I thought it was a neat idea, and I was already getting into some fan fiction writing and things like that, and I did a little test post and had like a very small Discord server where a few of us gathered to kind of throw some prompt ideas together. Um, and the idea in the beginning was always to get a list of prompts to choose from, and then set up like a little straw poll vote so that we could pick one. And it started off with one prompt, and the participation, it wasn't great, but once people kind of caught on, it eventually it built to what we have now. But those first few months were kind of touch and go there for a little while, where we weren't sure if that was going to be a thing that kept going. And I just told everyone, mods included, and I'm like, look, we'll keep doing this as long as you're willing to let me do it. And for the longest time, I would have to every week I'd have to pester the mods. Hey, can you throw me a sticky, please? um, and eventually they got to the point where they worked it out so that the bot would catch the post and automatically do it. It could do that much. But yeah, we're going on. Wow, this is going to be year 3 is done with in just a couple of weeks. And I mean, we've had a post every week without fail. whether I've been out and about on the road or not feeling great or any of that. I would always try to. The times have changed periodically, mostly down to work schedule and things like that. But
Shand, wouldn't it be technically 4 years? 16,
say
17,
again?
18, and now 19.
Well, I mean, we're starting on year 4. 16,
Oh, okay,
17,
yeah, you're right.
18, and 2019, but it starts late in the year, so this is technically we'll be starting year 4. But yeah, you're right.
I'm a history major. I'm not good at dates.
Hey, I'm not good at counting. You remember when we went just putting the date on there to a numbering
Oh,
system, and there were 2 threads of writing prompt Wednesday number 16.
Whatever our good viewers do, don't actually try and figure out what the current number is for writing prompt Wednesday, because none of us really.
It's not that bad. Anyway,
Right.
so that's basically how it got started.
Right. I know you've talked a little bit about how in the beginning there's a lot less people, and because of that, there's also a lot less suggestions for prompts. So how you started was you just only had the 1 prompt a week, and now you're up to 3, unless there's shenanigans. I've seen there be
Right.
5 at one time before.
Yeah, and so it's as much as I don't want this to sound arbitrary, we did have a point where we would start getting ties, and I'm sure people have heard me or seen me say in the crow's nest before that I was convinced that there was some behind the scenes vote coordinating going on in certain circumstances, and John has.
I will
Earlier
take
in
the occasion to admit that I did on very, very many occasions intentionally force a tie in order to provoke Shand into doing multiple prompts in a session.
Yeah. And so it got to the point where, okay, this is getting silly. Let's just do 3. The top 3 voted in is going to be what people have to choose from to work with every week. I want to say that started around 40 or 45, somewhere in there. We'd been going for several months. But
Technically, the first time we had multiple prompts was 19. I believe that was either the first tie or the first time you wanted to indulge that.
Right. And then we also had the little issue of, I mean, people were, if not great at participating with, the prompts that were selected to be written, they were definitely participating when it came to making suggestions. And so the master list, it just kind of grew, and right now we're just under 1,300 prompts that are available for me to randomly choose from for the straw polls. And so we had to, I guess we're kind of like sliding into the challenges aspect of this, and keeping all that straight and organized. I mean, I've got a great big spreadsheet.
I have no idea how you do that.
It's with a lot of practice and time, I've gotten to be pretty good at it. I've shuddered to think if I were to ever pass this off to someone, how they would cope. Because
I ran Link's Fanfiction Friday that had a bunch of different prompts, and yeah, I do not want to do something like that on the scale you have.
yeah, this thing has like 15 tabs in it. And it's not just for, prompt suggestions and things like that. I also keep track of, what's been used, what's been discarded, because we came up with a scheme to where prompts that got selected a second time to be put on the straw poll, if they did not win, then they would be moved to the discard pile. And, people could still access those for special events and things like that. But we got to the point, once the master list got to like 900 or so, I was like, okay, so we got to find another way to cut this down. So any prompts that get less than 5% of a vote in a straw poll now also fall into the discards category, and we've modified that once or twice as the list has become more or less manageable. But we've also had to cut back suggestions to just give us one because there's a lot. And
Makes
I
sense.
tell you, I got to a point where I couldn't keep up with that because there would be so many, and I fell into this kind of pattern where it would be like a month or two, and I'm like, okay, so I got up to this thread, now I need to go and collect all these, and it's been, as you would say, yes, it is. It's been challenging, but it's also been a lot of fun, especially when it comes to. Didn't we have one of those already? And then you have to go use the search function and look for duplicates. And it got to the point where even that was too cumbersome. And so I took a copy of the master list with whoever it was that submitted the prompt, and then put it on a separate sheet altogether and just sorted it by username so that I could pick out the duplicates a little easier. Because some people weren't understanding that we keep track of this. You don't need to give it to us more than once. Or they'll have forgotten and come up with something very similar. Those are much harder to spot.
Especially when people
so we
have the same idea.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we've had a few instances during the threads that have we've had prompts win multiple times that are either very same or exactly the same.
Then they're a good card, right?
And people usually participate based off of those. Regardless of, some things are fun topics to return to, and others, people just don't care for at all.
The first prompt that I ever did, that was in June of 18. I know sometime in winter spring of 19 it came back up again, and I used that to make a sequel to compare my writing between then and now.
Yeah. Now, for me, that's the other big challenge is there's so many. Now, I don't know if anybody knows. There's some things I keep track of. I keep track of word counts, but based on individual users, and as much as stereo is still top dog at, God, I don't even know. Like you broke 250,000, didn't you? I haven't looked at it in a while because I
know you told me that I was close. I don't remember if you told me I broke it. The certain point I stopped counting. There was too many.
I knew I was over 100,000, but I don't know where I am at the moment. I don't write as proficiently as I did back then.
Yeah, and I haven't gone back through and done a graph since number 139. But by that point, stereo, you were like at 284K. John, we can just look. I've got the spreadsheet up here in front of me, so it's like. I'm sure I was going to need it, so I thought, what the heck? Gotta be. John, you actually broke 101.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
So that was back in. Yay! Congratulations. That 100K mark, even if it's whether it's a piece of fan fiction that you're writing or the word count that I keep track of. And I don't really publish these for general consumption, but our channel here on the Discord server, every now and then I would post it on there just to kind of give people a little taste. But that the word counts being one thing that I keep track of, but also because I noticed early on that we had a couple of users that for whatever reason they deleted their account and then deleted their stories beforehand. So once I saw that started to happen, I thought, okay, we can't lose that. That's not cool. So I started copying everybody's posts. I have a folder for each year where I've got Word documents with what people have posted, and it's actually getting to about, I think, 6 meg, which is freaking huge for document folders.
I can't even be bothered to transcribe all of my own works. And here he is copying strangers on the internet from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Someone is a statistics fan.
I'm crazy. Politely. I'm crazy. Call me Mr. Cat, right?
Do.
So one of the other things that I ran into not long after we started this is not quite a year. People started wanting to kind of experiment with other things and I had some ideas of my own, but I realized that there's no way that I could do this on my own. So I started asking people. I created the RWBY prompt subreddit and started asking, hey, is anybody interested in helping me run with this? I've got some ideas. I'm sure you guys have got some ideas. And I actually went and put the idea in front of Stereo, and he ended up becoming my right-hand guy. Not only because he was a weekly participant for so long, but because he had some really great ideas. And then we had Josh and John and Fall came on, and I haven't talked to Fall in a long time. He left quite a while ago, but I'm sure he's doing all right. I don't know. Stereo, you said you talk to him once in a while, right?
Do every now and then. He's still Fall. He hasn't changed all that much. Still as quiet and self-deprecating as ever.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
But excellent writer when we could get him to focus.
Absolutely.
That confidence issue, and confidence is a thing that I think all writers have to deal with. And I mean, the more you do it, the easier it is to deal with. But
That's certainly why I recommend running Prompt Wednesday. That helps
exactly
that.
Exactly. Very low stress, no judgments, just a few very basic, simple rules to follow. Like, same as the subreddit rules, no gore, no non-safe for work, or if you absolutely must do that, fine. Just, post it somewhere else and make a link and tell us what it is so that, people that don't want to read that sort of thing don't have to be exposed to it. So,
just keep in mind, kids, whenever you're writing, the only one who's ever going to criticize your work is you forever.
Is you.
Maybe not the only one. You'll just be the harshest.
Usually, yeah.
I will say one of the more difficult things of writing Prompt Wednesday's history was definitely the pulling in of writers. If you look at the accoutrement of the story, of the prompts we were receiving, the votes being cast in the weekly threads, those have always well exceeded the upvotes and the comments that are passed around inside the threads themselves. So people have for a long time enjoyed writing Prompt Wednesday. The difficulty was always in getting people to join in. I was a regular following and writing Prompt Wednesday for 2 or 3 weeks before I even thought about writing something, on my own.
Oh, yeah, I also just looked in for a couple months before I thought that I was, it was easy enough for me to do.
A lot of the times it's just finding that prompt that engages your person or makes them think, this is so ridiculous, I have to do something with it. Or, it's that lightning strike that makes a person feel compelled.
Absolutely. And the recurring theme I've been seeing a lot with the writer showcases I did this year and last, with I talked to, basically said that they started because of a particular prompt that inspired them to do so.
I think for me, it was the Cinder's secret hobby prompt in week 12 or 10, I think, something like that.
I remember which one you're talking about, yeah.
I had to do that. I was just struck by this incredibly stupid idea of Cinder actually loves the process of matchmaking and loves nothing more than to make other people fall in love because she's a manipulator like that. And I felt just compelled to write this, and it continued on from there.
Yeah, that's good.
And I've always felt that one of the things that's helpful in engaging people beyond the prompts is also being able to go into the thread and see the regularity. And I attribute Stereo a lot of impact in making writing Prompt Wednesday go. Stereo and Shand. Shand for always having it up there and always bugging, make sure it's pinned, always making sure it's present. And and Stereo, because it didn't matter what was going on. There was always going to be at least one story in there because Stereo was a machine. You'd produce a story every week. I don't know when you had your first week where you didn't have a story produced, Stereo. I'm not sure when that happened, but it was.
I started with number 2, and I think I finally skipped a week in 109.
Yeah.
Wow.
I made a point of trying to be present I made it, I think, 30 weeks of continuous work once I started. And I've felt that consistent production by at least a few people, like marquee writers, if we really want to give ourselves a little bit of narcissistic pats on the back, to encourage people to feel like they can come in here and say, well, this person's always writing, so why can't I?
And for my part, I do like to participate, but my problem is that I'm greedy and I want to read the stories, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And unfortunately, if you get caught in that position, especially when you have to be watching for, things like rules violations and that sort of thing. And I mean, the mods, they help as they can. But the problem with reading all that is any ideas that I have half the time go right out the window. Gosh, somebody already did it. So, and of course, there are oftentimes also the prompt just isn't clicking with me, and I can't really think of an idea. So my preference is to enjoy what other people write, and that's been true from the very first thread. But it's interesting to see things like voting trends, and what's interesting from volume to volume, and the hiatus in between. It's also interesting to see how some of the older prompts that were submitted years ago get treated in the straw polls, and very it's weird. Sometimes it's still relevant, but a lot of times they're like, "Hey, this is like way out of date," and I mean, short of writing a really weird AU, I don't see how I can make this work, which I'm sure
Yeah.
is what a lot of people think.
I personally, like I've mentioned before, like one of the ones I've always enjoyed is like you go back to week 9 and you open up the voting poll and you're like, well, this has got 6 stories and the top ones are, first place is 6 votes and second place is tied 4. And you go open this week's Writing Prompt Wednesday, I think it's like 300 votes were cast in the poll. And so the viewer base certainly has expanded tremendously.
Have a very good readership. That's true.
It does help that the RWBY subreddit and RWBY as a whole has become that much bigger.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of popularity that we've been able to take advantage of, I think. And while I won't, you know what? I'm just going to say it.
Do it.
Going to one of the Rose City Comic Con a couple years back and meeting all 4 of the girls for the first time. I mean, I had met Aaron and Kara and Elizabeth Maxwell. Don't say anything, you guys. You keep your mouths shut. Yeah, the meeting those 3. I mean, it was great, and they were nice. But I really wanted to meet Lindsay and Barb at some point, and finally got to do that at Rose City. And I brought a couple of posters along because we had the year-end contest, and I wanted to do something special that year. And so I drag out one of these posters right at Lindsay's table and tell her what it's for. She's, I know who you are, and I about died. So
shit.
Yeah, the cast are aware, and I would like to imagine that they do look in on occasion. I don't know that I wouldn't suspect they have the time or patience to read everything that gets posted, but having it being basically acknowledged by Lindsay was probably one of the most awesome things that I've ever had.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, really? Senpai noticed me.
And that poster you got ended up being the prize for the second end of year contest. And
right.
That reminds me of something, Chandro.
Mm-hmm.
You owe me a poster.
Number of participants.
All right, that's right. Crap, I owe you a poster.
Stereo, you said a little bit earlier, Writing Prompt Wednesday also has these kind of satellite events like the Writer's Showcase or Cunning Challenge. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that?
So the basic idea is we wanted to have an event every week that would coincide with Writing Prompt Wednesday for people who really loved to write fan fiction or prompts. One's Cunning Challenge, which starts the first week of the month, I should say.
Right.
Normally be my writing showcase when I was doing that. Then do a different kind of prompt where instead of written words, there would be a picture or a piece of music. And then finally, Shan was doing what he called prompt theory, examining the vote totals, the reasons that people responded to certain prompts, going up from the very beginning of this.
Very subjective.
Definitely the statistics guy.
From there, we just wanted to provide more content for our regulars. So you'll still see people like Dead or Alive 2 or Sungrass Rider popping in times a year at least for these events. who have been there for a very long time and still really enjoy the art of writing for RWBY. And I think that Cutting Challenge in particular is probably our most popular because
Yeah.
it really does allow a lot more creativity than a lot of the other options.
I think
And
cutting
it's also
challenges. Oh, please go ahead.
it's also a kind of a place to throw down the gauntlet, as it were.
Hmm.
It does
Or
have.
yeah, I don't know that we've had much success with the counter challenges terribly often.
It's not a very frequent feature. The people generally will only do a single challenge. We have had, I would say, several one counters, but we've never. I don't believe we've ever had a triple counter. I think we've had maybe 2 or 3 double counters, but we've never had a triple.
Yeah, Shift and I went back and forth a couple times before he joined Team I, just playing around.
I mean, it's when we originally created Cutting Challenge, it had been my assumption that that there would be a situation where you'd have 4 or 5 writers basically going in this month-long continuous counter, like 5, 6, 7 deep. And what we really more ended up with is 10 or 12 writers all going 1 or 2 deep. And so it became a much broader focus than I had originally anticipated when we began spitballing Cutting Challenge.
And of course, the part of the challenge that came with that was, okay, so we have like 16 people who have asked for a challenge, and only like 10 of them have a challenge in front of them. Can somebody
Yeah.
we would have to coordinate between, okay, so who hasn't provided one? It was kind of fun to get that so that everybody had a fair shake.
It's again that feature of everyone wants this to happen. Everyone, is happy to be part of the attachments and the side parts of this project, but not everyone actually wants to produce something on an occasion. And it's very much that kind of situation. Because it involves putting yourself out there, and involves at least dedicating some amount of time to the creative process, which isn't something everyone's down for.
But yeah, some of the other satellite events that we've had that have discontinued, like Stereo mentioned, we had the non-text prompts where it was either music or an image or something like that.
I thought you still did that one.
Actually, Shifter has resurrected that, and it kind of it comes and goes with popularity. But
Right.
he had originally done a thread where we would kind of submit stories for like a chapter of a fan fiction or a piece that we'd written for Writing Prompt Wednesday for others to peer review, and the idea was, okay, so you've submitted your story and it's based on participation. You review other people's stuff, and then when you do a review, you can put a chapter or whatever it is that you want to have looked at for the next round. And unfortunately, it fell to the inevitable sort of diminishing returns, and so it got to the point where people weren't submitting things to be reviewed, and it just had kind of shrank until it was untenable. And so he decided to go ahead and start back up the non-text prompts. We also go ahead.
Sorry, I keep doing that. Go ahead.
No.
Non-prompt is one of those ones where I personally I love non-prompt. Some of my favorite works I've produced in non-prompt, but it's so wide open in many ways that it can be intimidating. And for me even to say that I love it, I don't think I've only written 4 or 5 things in non-prompt in the history of us doing it, and I'm part of the people that helps arrange these things. I think it's one of the things that Writing Prompt Wednesday in its base form has done so well with the poll and the limited number of prompts in a day, and that it focuses the energy of the audience. Whereas with non-prompt, as much as I love it, it's also a situation where it's kind of overwhelming for a person to take a song and transmute it into a story, or take a picture and transmute it into a fic. And a lot of these satellite events we have to find a way to, if it's going to engage the creative side, we need to find a way to make sure that it doesn't split too wide or cut too narrow. Because if it's too tight, you're not going to have much engagement, because a person's not going to feel the space to move around it.
Too nice.
And I don't think that's anything that's unique to our situation, because if you go to the proper writing prompts thread, you do see people occasionally will submit like an image prompt or a song prompt, and you don't see it very often because written prompts are just, the order of the day.
It's a general creative feature as well. If you go over, like, whose line is it Saturday? It's a similar situation. A prompt that people feel like they have a space to work in is more likely to be taken.
Oh, yeah.
But a couple of the other events that we've run in the past, we had the other guys where we would take and try and recycle the discard prompts, and Josh would go through each month and pick a few, and that was an attempt that, as much as I hate to say it, and I feel bad for Josh because he worked so hard on it, but it didn't go as well as some of our other satellite events, and so now it's kind of we let Josh. I did some test events. Take the shot is what we're doing now, where basically people are like, okay, this is my idea, this is the fandom, these are the characters, and this is kind of like the short synopsis. What do you think? Or these are the challenges, or these are the things I can't think of what to do. Any ideas or feedback, and so on and so forth. And it's one of those, another one. It comes and it goes, but we do have participation, usually at least one or two people. There are other things that I've tried that have been very successful, like Letters to Remnant, which is basically you write a letter as yourself to one of the characters in the show. And the one time I did it, people had a lot of fun with it. But there were other things that I wanted to test, and so I've kind of been bouncing around with different ideas. Especially now that we had writing advice, which was the dreaded, oh crap, we have a fifth week, what are we going to do? And so we came up with this plan. Well, let's do writing advice, and each one of us would pick like a subject that we felt comfortable writing on, and we would do basically a blog post. And now that that's kind of drawn to a close, I'm not sure what the plan is. That's the other really big challenge with Writing Prompt Wednesday is we're all over the place. We're East Coast, West Coast, Mid Central, and trying to get a time where we can all get together and talk for like an hour is really, really hard to schedule. Because we've got work schedules and we've got different time zones, and
some of us are in school, some of us are professional.
I
Exactly.
kind of experienced a little bit of that.
Yeah, you're getting the lightweight version of that. So.
Yeah, I get other places.
The other thing that we've tried to do, and that's kind of lapsed here in the last couple months, is the RWBY Prompts subreddit has a wiki that the RWBY mods at one point opened it up so that we could have a wiki page, and then they went and looked at ours. Wow, yours is actually really extensive. Maybe we should just link to that instead. So basically anything that you have like a rundown of the recurring threads that we have in RWBY Prompts, as well as a couple of pages dedicated to the links to each individual thread for Writing Prompt Wednesday, and also the recurring threads. So I haven't gotten quite brave enough to make an archive of everybody's postings, because that's going to be a lot of work. But it's still been a lot of fun. The other thing that we do is, or that I tried to do, was the musings and other apocrypha. If you're not familiar with that, anybody who's watching, there was a point where I had this idea where we could make a kind of like an unofficial wiki for Remnant, basically, letters to home, or official communiques from the this or that kingdom council and things like that, and make it available for anybody as a writing resource. But it's been kind of hard to stay on top of that, because making separate wiki pages for all that, it's on top of everything else that I do. It's
a whole other separate wiki for you to edit when you have to divide it into a bunch of different categories. And this is all meant to be ancillary material that someone can use for the sake of fanfic. So you have to find this wiki, sort through the categories, and then choose what document they want to cite.
Do you guys have anything more in the satellite events before moving to special events?
Special events, do that.
Yeah, special events.
Yeah, so that's like
Special.
what you guys do for any kind of holidays. You also mentioned the anniversary coming up.
Yeah.
Let's start with the anniversary.
Stereo, you wanna lead on that one?
Talk
Did
a
we
little
do
bit
stereo?
about end of year and the contests that we do.
Yeah.
First one started 2016. And there were only 6 entries submitted.
Well, you started in October, so
I mean, there wasn't the greatest pool of work to choose from, and there weren't as many of us yet, but it started small and numbers because I want to compare it to the next year, 2017, when we had 23 participants and had the poster to give away that time, as opposed to the Tomb Raider game that Tiernach gave to me. You remember that, Shend?
Yeah. We were kind of throwing stuff together as we could, and really didn't have much opportunity. There was kind of a last minute decision to do the contest after discussing it with the mods, and they're like, "Are you okay with this? Is there like any kind of limitations you want to impose?" And they were just like, "Yeah, do whatever, man. That's cool."
The point from this is that we've seen like growth and increased participation, as well as writers who take increasing pride in their contributions to Writing Prompt Wednesday know that they can be honored like this, not only with the prize and awards to them, but also with recognition from their peers. It gives them a sense of community that you wouldn't necessarily get just from any other prompt thread.
yeah, if nothing else, I very much enjoy it when I make whatever, think it's just okay, and somehow it shoots up to the top of the thread.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
always a good feeling to have.
I mean, leading up to the formation of Team Aegis, there weren't really a lot of special events. Like I said, we had the free for all, which was at once it was a encouragement for people to participate and give them a little bit more levity to what they wanted to do, as well as the year-end contest. We didn't really see a whole lot of events up until Team Aegis was formed. And the reason for that was because it's just one guy running the show, and only so much that I could do, because at the time I was working at third shift. So the amount of time I had to focus on putting things together was really, really limited. But on the wiki, there is a helpful, handy dandy little notation system that Stereo, was that you that did that?
I think Fall did it first, and then I just kind of copied after him.
Yeah, where the individual threads, if they had a special event, they made note of it off to the side.
I've started to go overboard with those, and a lot of mine were stripped out as a little too simple.
But the first time that I did something that wasn't a contest or a free for all was my birthday. Back in 2017. It was like Writing Prompt Wednesday fell exactly on my birthday. I'm like, okay, so you guys cool with me just like picking stuff? And I put it to a vote, and they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Pretty laid back and low key when it comes to Writing Prompt Wednesday. So I picked out a handful of prompts and threw them up there for them to do. And then we had the first official free for all. Shortly after that, then we decided that we could do it once a year, or we could do it twice a year. And so we thought, what, it's not too much to expect 6 months gap in between a free for all. And so that kind of became the way we did things as far as that goes. We've also went to we had other ideas thrown around, because we want to kind of do something every quarter. And so the next event was the Daisy Chain of Doom, is what I call it. So it's basically one person starts a story, and then the next person continues it, and the next person goes after that, and it's just one big long story like Chinese Whispers.
I know we covered challenges already, but that one in particular was a bit of
oh my god,
Daisy Chain from hell.
Yeah, getting the order of authors selected was kind of a bear, and then making sure, okay, so hey, so and so's done, it's your turn, are you ready to go?
Started out the first 5 authors,
5 or 6 of us pre-wrote. I recall that because I was third, I believe. We communicated ahead of time, and we said, "All right, I'm going to do this. Here's a synopsis," and we just passed that back and forth. But that ran out of steam, and eventually we had to do it wholesale.
And then piecemeal.
Do at least one substitution. I remember we had to kind of.
Yeah. So every time somebody suggests we should do a daisy chain, I'm like, fine, you run it. And then nobody wants to do that. or they're game for it until I explain to them how much work it was for us the first time. So, we also celebrate our anniversary. And sometimes, we'll do something special, depending on what people want to do. And others, I think we had one year where there was like, hey, let's just do what we usually do, but congratulations, happy second year or whatever. We also, I don't know about anybody else here, but Halloween is like my favorite holiday. I could care less about Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's just excuses to sit around, get fat, and get presents, and that's nice. But Halloween is really special to me, so I've always wanted to celebrate that as much as possible. And unfortunately, time constraints in my real life don't really let me do anything. I live in an apartment, so I can't really decorate much. So the spooky, scary prompts of Halloween is how I offset that. Let's see, we have other events as well. We do like Valentine's Day.
Take a nice big jump from October until February the following year, because in 2018 we really expanded the events we would do. Like we started doing spring break. Those were all relatively new ideas after we discussed how we wanted to do this and if we wanted to incorporate them, because we wanted to not only drum up interest in, we'll be writing Prompt Wednesday, but also just make prompts feel more special and maybe alternate from week to week. So have a set date, but also would be different from the norm.
I think it definitely works in doing that. Whenever there's an event coming up, I might have been, not doing prompts for a while. I'll look at it and try to do something.
I mean, Halloween's just around the corner. You can just make it scary.
And the anniversary right before it.
Yeah, because last year my thing, I really just tried to rush it out the door, so that was posted on Halloween night. Bad idea. To any writers out there, don't rush things.
Time to get all your spooky stories ready, guys.
Yeah. And don't feel compelled to post the night of or the next day. I mean,
no, please don't give them that advice, Shand. You know how much I will always try to contradict you there.
I mean, if you want to rush and post something right away, cool. However, we've had users in the past who have tried to take advantage of, okay, so it's like 3 or 4 days before, and the votes are kind of going this way. It looks like I can get away with it, and they'll pre-write. Then I will, I'll go ahead and say, okay, well, so it's Sunday night. Here's what won, and the prompt that they pre-wrote for will be on the winning list. It'll have dropped down to below third place.
My advice would always be that if you have the time to write the day of when the thread is posted,
but
into Reddit's comment box, go for it. Have fun with it. And I understand that doesn't appeal to every writer who either needs to work from a Word document or a Google Doc or whatever, or just doesn't want to risk losing all of their work because they accidentally misclicked on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's mostly what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
That's why I usually work from Word doc. The other thing is that, Reddit lets you post something up to 6 months later before it archives the thread. So even, certainly I will see it because it's my thread and, I'm going to get the message. But we always try to encourage people, hey, look, if you want to go back a few weeks and write something like you couldn't think of something or you needed longer to work on it, do it. And then just come over to the Crow's Nest and post it, or go to the RWBY Discord server and post it there. I mean, other people will read it if you link it.
Definitely.
Now, I don't know how successful that is. I have had a few occasions where somebody has gone back, months and posted a thing and then come over to the crow's nest and had people come and look at it. And I mean, it's very low key, which is what I like about it. There's no pressure to, like, you got to do this. And I've always told people, look, if you feel like you have to do something, don't, because it corrupts the writing process, I think,
It does, yeah.
But
That philosophy
we-
is also why I think that is.
sorry, say that again.
Damn it! Don't worry about it. It was a bad joke.
No.
Yeah, that sounds like John.
So are there any other kind of special events that really stand out?
This may just be my perspective, but I think Valentine's Day tends to bring out people. Spring break, I think, is a little bit more limiting.
Shipping. Sorry.
Oh boy, let's not go there, man. That's a contentious
Well,
topic.
Sure, but the point I'm trying to get at is that there's our readership to get creative and come up with interesting things. Because when we do it, we try and choose prompts that vaguely sound sort of romantic or interpreted from there. What stands out to me even more than that is that I have to remind Shand for a year. Hey, Shand, it's February 14th. I'm doing something for Valentine's Day.
Crap. And I'll always forget because of the holidays that I care the least about, unfortunately, it's Valentine's Day because I am single and am happily resigned to that being the status quo for the rest of my life. I think I'll stop there. Basically, Valentine's Day, yes, somebody has to remind me. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. So, guilty, yes.
All right. Well, how about a little something different? You've talked about what you've done in the past and what you are doing. What would you want in the future of Writing Prompt Wednesday? Because it seems to be very much a status quo. Are you happy with that?
I mean, I'm always looking to try new things, and the suggestion floor is always open. I mean, it's not like, this is how it is, and if you don't like it, then oh well. I've never wanted to be that guy. I mean, like certain things, of course, we can't budge on. I mean, like you got to follow the subreddit rules. Just let's not go there. But as far as, hey, can we try blah? Sure, cool, but those suggestions have been pretty few and far between. And usually most people reserve suggestions for things like that to the special events and so on. But I mean, I know what I want. More writers. I mean, but again, that goes back to me being greedy. Yeah. At this point, we have somewhere between 220 and 250 people who have written for Writing Prompt Wednesday at some point. I haven't done a roundup of the last few months as far as stuff like that. I do try to welcome new writers. The last month or so has been...
You welcomed me 3 times.
Personal, professional, a lot of stuff going on, and don't have as much time as I'm used to having, even with me being on for shift now. So it's... Even now, it's just a challenge to sit down and read through everybody's stuff and let alone, leave some kind of a supporting comment. I mean, what I would like to see is, and you do see it here and there, is the writers talking to each other. I mean, like I want them to get, bounce off of each other and get ideas and, provide their own feedback amongst one another. I mean, it's nice when I can do it for them, but I'm, as much as I don't want to say this, I should not be the only person doing it.
Agreed.
And so it's nice to see that, when the other authors or even somebody who's just lurking and reading comes back and says, I really like this is awesome, or whatever comments they have to make. And so far, I haven't really seen anything negative. I mean, we've had a couple of prompt suggestions that have been, in poor taste, where I've had to step in and say, no, we're not doing that. And usually the people that, I have to kind of pull aside, I'm like, no, this is not okay. They're usually, they accept it. I don't know whether they're happy or not, because I mean, limiting factor of text responses being what they are. But nobody has raised a fuss about any of the lines that I've had to draw in the sand, few as they've been.
It's hard to read the emotions in the response of
Oh,
thumbs up, fire.
Yeah. I'm like, does that mean they're angry that I'm on fire? Are they happy that I'm on fire? I don't know what to say. What is that? I don't know how to.
This is when we show our age.
Right. The guys, I mean, I can't be the only one who's interested in what's the future of WPW. What do you guys think?
I've just to like pull the curtain back and look into a bit of the team Aegis and Shand interactions. I've kind of always had the sense I'm a bit of the conservative of the group. I'm usually one of the people that's like, oh, maybe we hold off on doing an extra event this year. Maybe we don't change this system yet. And I don't. It's just a personal preference, and debates about how we should operate certain things that we do inside of Writing Prop Wednesday. It's in my mind, like I've always enjoyed the idea of more writers, and even as I've done less writing myself, I still make a point of at least going to the threads and reading the stories, upvoting the people who've submitted, seeing if anyone new is showing up. I still also love it when I see that there's new writers involved, and it's something that I take a real pleasure in seeing that people are still involved in this activity. But the expansion and evolution of Writing Prop Wednesday, I suppose I've always kind of been a bit of the a slowing factor. I have no idea, if Shander is in stereo and the others are annoyed by my habit of saying, well, let's not do that this time. We'll hold off and keep that in the back pocket for a later day. But it does seem to be a role I often end up playing, I feel like, when we have our little communiques.
I never have a problem with it. I mean, I despise the echo chamber. I mean, like, that's the whole point of, creativity is, is providing alternative perspectives. So, yeah, if there's an objection, I want to hear it. I might not like it, I might not appreciate it, but to not hear it at all is worse than, that inherent like or dislike.
To be fair, oftentimes my objection is in a Stewie Griffin voice. I don't like change.
Well, yeah, nobody likes change.
yeah.
Stereo?
At its most basic, I just want to see more writers, more participation. It's very uneven, which is pretty common during the hiatus. You may see if
Yep.
in full swing we see more activity.
Yeah, and that's possibly down to a number of factors. I would imagine, as you say, the hiatus is a big factor, and whether that's because there aren't as many people coming to the subreddit, or because there's less interest from the people who aren't seeing something new from Rooster Teeth, and so they don't pay as much attention. But that continues to grow regardless, because of the popularity of the show brings in more subreddit members.
Some of the real life issues with Rooster Teeth as a company right now, because speaking purely from the perspective, look, we've got a DC pick, we've got a new volume coming out after a volume that was better than the one before it. So I think their enthusiasm for the universe, I'm just hoping that translates.
The hiatus is also a good time where sorry, Terry. The hiatus is also like a period where we do see this. It's kind of like it's a bit of a tide situation, because even as we see, we generally see a decrease in activity, and oftentimes, but when we are approaching the new season and the tide starts to come back, it's oftentimes not always the same people, because there's that inflow and outflow of fans whose attachment to the show or involvement in the community might change depending on whatever's going on. I've dropped the show in the subreddit on occasions before in the past, and I've ended up coming back as well on a different tide. So there's an inflow and outflow that also contributes to the hiatus generally being a slow period during Writing Prop Wednesday's production periods.
Alrighty then. So I suppose to cap things off, we've going for a good bit now. From each of you, how about just one thing that kind of gets you excited to see during a thread?
One thing, so unfair.
Fine, you get two.
Genres and characters that inspire. We'll have our favorites, our favorite characters, our favorite topics to write about. there's something about Neo or Cinder or Raven, I'm more likely to be there.
Yeah, penny for me.
The thing that I always get the giddiest about, and the thing that you almost always grabs me, is when I'm reading the prompts that are coming in. Oftentimes, this is the prompts that are coming in next week, and then I'll prepare, because I am a person who pre-writes most of the time. And when I read a prompt and I think to myself, oh joy, the ways in which I can make this go not the way it's intended.
Yeah, that is actually a pretty good point.
my one of my more favorite versions of this recently was someone did a prompt. Like the prompt basically was like, something, beware the were-Pyrrha. And the idea the person was going for, I assume, is the idea of like Pyrrha is a werewolf. And now it's a Pyrrha story, which immediately kind of engages me. I'm a big fan of Pyrrha.
Yeah, I remember this one.
But when I read this, I was like, oh, you don't know what I can do with this. And rather than what I assume would be the logical conclusion of Pyrrha is some kind of werewolf, and you do some kind of story about that, I said, no, it's in the dark of the night under the full moon. Ren turns into Pyrrha. And that was a bit I did. And for as ridiculous as a concept it was, I also wrote the story to be kind of sad, because it's creepy and uncomfortable, and Ren and Jean don't know what the hell is happening. And I was deeply amused by the just inherent strangeness that I managed to take the story, because it's just the not what I think anyone wanted or expected from the prompt. And opportunities like that for me and for other authors, when it's like, well, let's see how I can twist this around itself, is just something that I enjoy. There's a certain level of creativity and maliciousness that I enjoy in it.
Of both, you excel.
Subverting expectations, the bread and butter of SmallJon.
Yeah, true.
Well, for my part, so you say I get 2, right?
Sure.
Okay, so my first thing that I'm really drawn to reading and writing wise is any sort of crossover. I'm a crossover fanatic. I mean, you look at like half the fan fiction that I've written myself, and I'm like, duh, that's a non-starter. But the other thing that I really enjoy is the opportunity to expand on a previous piece of work in WPW. So like Stereo has this like small universe, and he's not the only one. There are others done the same thing, and I think that is awesome. Can you write a sequel? Can you have characters from one story interact with another? I mean, any of those options to me is just I live for it. And unfortunately, I'm not as good at the action of that when it comes to my own writing. But if somebody reminds me, because now we've got 3 years worth of materials, the more Stereo would do it. I'm like, okay, so which part was this going to? I don't remember what thread was. Can you like write me like a wiki? But I'm always down for reading about world building stories where you've got your own little AU and you have all these different elements and aspects and characters, and it's really something that you can sink your teeth into. And I don't think I've ever encountered another fandom that really does this. Like maybe Naruto does it, but that's not a fandom I'm really plugged into. Or any of the other popular ones. So like I'm sure Dragon Ball has something like that. But I do see that some of the other fandoms that I've looked at, and we actually discussed this briefly, and then immediately discarded it as, well, what if we could do this for other fandoms? Like, does somebody want to go over to the Transformers fandom and try and start this? And I know Kulat X-Core, he's got a thing that he does over in Gamma Industry for I forget what game it is. I've lost it. I'm sorry. He's been struggling along with it because he doesn't get some of the perks that we get over at RWBY. Like he can't get a thread sticky because they've already got other stuff going on. But he does get participation. It's not nearly on the order of what happens at RWBY. But I really don't see that in other fandoms. In fact, as how do I put this? As active and I don't know what the word is. So RWBY subreddit, when like they have this like whole scheme, this whole theme for their page. You know, they've got these guys working on CSS scripts and things like that. A lot of effort and work being put into having the subreddit actually be its own thing. That's not just okay. Well, it's a subreddit. You know, plain white text and links and stuff. You don't really see that a lot of places. And I haven't done a great deal of looking around, so I could very well be wrong about this, but I just get this feeling that RWBY has a lot more attention and care put into it than a lot of the other fandoms out there.
It's definitely very creative in what they do.
Yeah. So I think is that it? Did we come to the end?
Yes,
oh my
so.
God.
Stories end eventually.
My recording session is like an hour and a half.
Well, with what we lost, we're actually only just at an hour and 3 minutes. So with that, I think we should probably cut this off for Helena, so she doesn't have to go through too much. So all that's left is the shilling. So we'll make sure to put down a link to the most recent Writing Prompt Wednesday in the description. And if you want to do that, go there. Also, you can talk about that as well as a bunch of other stuff in the Crow's Nest. This is where the Writing Prompt Wednesdays guys work and get all that stuff hammered out. We have a channel for it, and there'll be someone that will come along willing to talk with you about all that kind of good stuff. So we'll put a link for the Nest as well. And with that, although I haven't talked all that much, I have been Jelo.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, man. We'll see you next time.
All right.